have been, well, we had previously gone over the prisms and the cylinders, because in a pyramid and a cone, you only have one base, you don't have two. Okay, so first going over pyramids. So a pyramid is a solid with one base. Okay, so we do have one base. The lateral faces intersect at the vertex. Okay, so if you look at this pyramid here, you have one base right here. All of these lateral faces intersect at this vertex up at the top. Okay, the height is the segment from the vertex that is perpendicular to the base. Okay, so your height of this pyramid will go from the vertex and then straight down perpendicular to that base. Okay, so that will be the height of a pyramid. Now, regular pyramids have a base that is a regular polygon. Okay, those are the ones that we're going to be working with. So we are looking at regular pyramids. That means all of the sides of that base are going to be congruent to each other. Okay, so it is a regular polygon. And the altitude has an endpoint at the center of the base. Okay, so your height or altitude from that vertex straight down to the base, it's at that center point. Okay, so we can find a length here, given that that is a center point. Okay, all the lateral edges are going to be congruent to each other. Okay, lateral edges again are these lines right here. Okay, those segments. All of those are going to be congruent to each other. Okay, meaning the lateral faces then are going to be congruent isosceles triangles. Okay, so here if you look at this lateral face in the front, you have a pair of sides congruent to each other, and then all of those four triangles there are going to be congruent. Okay, then the height of each lateral face is called the slant height. Okay, we will have to know what the slant height is in order to find surface area. Okay, because we need the area of that isosceles triangle. So this slant height would be this line right here along this pyramid. Okay, it is perpendicular to that base edge. Okay, and we label slant height as a cursive L. Okay, so that's how they label slant height. It is a cursive L. So then finding your lateral area of a pyramid, we are going to take 1/2 P times L. Okay, so 1/2 P times L. We do only have one base, that's why we're taking 1/2. We don't have two bases in a pyramid. Okay, so that's lateral area. Then surface area of a pyramid. Again, you have this 1/2 P times L, but then we also need to add on that one base to get the surface area of that entire pyramid. Okay, so our variables in our equations here, P is the perimeter of the base. Okay, so P is still the perimeter of that base, so you still have to locate that base shape. And capital B is the area of the base. Okay, so in each of these equations, the ones that we learned previously, P and B are the same here as well. Okay, and then this L variable is your slant height. Okay, so we're not actually finding just the height. We're looking for the slant height for this lateral area and surface area. Questions before we do some example problems? Alright, so in this first section here, we want to find the slant height or the height for each pyramid because we will have to find the slant height in order to find the surface area. So in letter A, I'm given that the height of this pyramid is 12 meters. Okay, that's what that indicates there. Okay, we're looking for this slant height, which is along that lateral shaded face there. Okay, and we label that L. I know it's kind of hard to see. Okay, so we label that as L. Now what I can do, since this is a regular pyramid and I know all of those base edges are the same length, I can create a right triangle within my pyramid. Okay, so using the height, this bottom segment here, and that slant height, we create a right triangle. Now since it's a regular pyramid, that means the height hits that base at the center point. So I can split this side length in half to get the length of this segment that I drew in, which will be 5 in this case. Okay, so now that I have two sides of a right triangle, I can use the Pythagorean theorem to find that slant height. So I would take 12 squared plus 5 squared is equal to that slant height squared, since the slant height is the hypotenuse of that right triangle. Okay, from there I just have to solve for the slant height. So I have 144 plus 25 is equal to L squared. Okay, so I have 169 equals L squared. Take the square root of both sides, and our slant height will be equal to 13 meters. Okay, so that's all I had to do for this one problem. Now when you're actually solving for surface area, sometimes you will have to do that to find the slant height and then find P and B as well. Questions on letter A? Okay, then letter B, this time I'm given the slant height is 10 feet. Okay, but I need to find the height. So I'm going to draw in the height. Hits the base at the center point there. Again, I want to create this right triangle with the slant height and the height. Okay, and then what length would this be down here? 6. Okay, so again, I can use the Pythagorean theorem to solve for that height. So I have 8 squared plus 6 squared is equal to 10 squared. Okay, so 8 squared plus 36 equals 100. Subtract 36 from both sides. H squared is equal to 64. And take the square root. And H should be 8. All right, questions on that before we go into finding surface area of that those regular pyramids at the bottom? All right, so now we're going to find the surface area of each regular pyramid. So number 1, since it is a regular pyramid, that means all of your base edges are going to be the same length. So since this edge here is 14, that means this edge here is also 14. Okay, and the other two sides are 14 as well. So I want to find P, L, and B. So to find P, since that's the perimeter of the base, okay, Our base is a square, and each side is 14. Okay, so I can just take 14 and multiply it by 4. You can add 14 4 times. That's the same thing. Okay, to get 56 feet as my perimeter of that base. Okay, next I need L, or the slant height. So I'm going to draw that in because it's not drawn in for me. Okay, and it has to be along that lateral face. And just like before, we're going to create a right triangle along that base side. So if my base edge is 14, this length is 7. Just divide it by 2. And then this length here is your slant height. So we label that L. So now I can use the Pythagorean theorem to solve for that slant height. So we would have 12 squared plus 7 squared is equal to L squared. Which is 144 plus 49. Okay, add those together to get 193. It's equal to L squared. And take the square root, and I'm going to round to the 10th here. So our slant height will be equal to 13.9 feet. Okay, so now I have P and I have L. The last thing I need is B. Okay, B is the area of the base. So since this is a square, I need to multiply the base times the height of just that square. Okay, so the base of the square is 14. The height of the square is 14. So I would multiply 14 times 14 to get the area of that base. And that's 196 feet squared. Alright, so now I have P, L, and B. I can find the surface area using my highlighted formula up here. Okay, so our surface area is equal to 1/2. Our P value is 56 times L is 13.9 plus 1 B. Don't add 2 B's. There's only one base. So plus 196. Okay, be careful when you enter this in your calculator. So I would just multiply 56 times 13.9, press enter, divide that by 2, and then add on 196. Okay, don't multiply, then add, then divide by 2. The only part that's divided by 2 is 56 times 13.9. Okay, so you should get about 585.2 feet squared as your surface area. Questions on that first example? All right, second example. So again, we want to find P, L, and B. Right now, all I'm given is the height of this pyramid is 10 centimeters. However, I am given that this angle right here is 60 degrees. So what do you think I have to use? I have to use my 30, 60, 90 right triangle rules. Okay, so this side of 10 is your long side in that right triangle. I need to find this short side right here. Okay, so I'm given the long side. I have to find the short, so I need to use this top equation here. So I would use long side is equal to the square root of 3 times the short side. Okay, and we're solving for that short side. So the long side is 10. I'll just label the short side as x here. Okay, then to solve for x, I just need to divide by the square root of 3. And you should get that value to be about 5.77. Okay, then we also need this slant height here, right? So I can use these rules again to find the slant height. That's the hypotenuse now. So we would have hypotenuse is equal to 2 times the short side. And we just found the short side. So we have L, or our slant height, is equal to 2 times our short side, which is 5.77. Okay, and that will be 11.54. Okay, and that's in centimeters. Now, I also need P. So I just found L. I also need P. So that means I need this entire side length here. Well, if my short side of that right triangle is 5.77, to get that entire side, what should I do? Multiply it by 2, which I did to find L, which is 11.54. Okay, so now that I have that entire base edge length, I can find P and B now. Okay, so P, since this is a regular pyramid, all 4 sides are 11.54. So I can just multiply that by 4 to get the perimeter, or add it 4 times, again, same thing, to get 46.16 centimeters. Okay, then finding B, or the area of that base, what should I do? How do I find the area of a square? I'm going to multiply base times height. So 11.54 times 11.54. So the area of that base is 133.17 centimeters squared. Okay, so now I have P, L, and B. I can use that surface area formula. So we'll take 1/2 times P, which is 46.16, times L is 11.54. Add on 1B, so 133.17. Again, make sure you can enter that into your calculator correctly. And you should get a surface area of 399.5 centimeters squared. Okay, questions on that one? Questions on finding surface area of pyramids? Again, you only add on 1B because there's only one base. Okay, don't add on 2 times B. Alright, then on the back we're going to look at cones. Okay, cones are very similar except your base shape is different. So a cone has a base in the shape of a circle. Okay, so our regular pyramids had a regular polygon as its base. In our cases for our notes, they were squares. Now a cone has a base shape of a circle. The axis of the cone is the segment with endpoints at the vertex and the center of the circle. Okay, so your axis will go from your vertex to the center point of your circle. Okay? This one, vertex, center point, that is your axis. If the axis is also the altitude, then the cone is a right cone. Okay, that's the one on the right here. Your axis is also the altitude or the height of that cone. If not, then the cone is an oblique cone. Okay, so here I drew in the axis. The altitude has to be perpendicular to the base. So those are different. So it is kind of sideways, making it oblique. All right, so we are going to look at the surface area of a cone then. So since the base shape is a circle, we are going to have to use circumference for perimeter and pi r squared for the base area. Okay, so that's why you see pi's in your formula here, but you can still think of it as 1/2 p times L plus b. Okay, so I'm still going to find P, I'm still going to find L, and I'm still going to find B. Okay, so where P, again, is the perimeter of the base, and B is the area of the base. Okay, and again, that L value is the slant height. Okay, not the height of the cone, it is the slant height. To find the perimeter of our base, we are going to use circumference. So we'll use 2 pi r, or pi times the diameter. Okay, so to find that perimeter, use circumference. And then to find our area, we use pi r squared. Okay, so you will need the diameter or the radius of that circle in order to find each of those. Alright, so just like before with our pyramids, first thing we want to do is find the slant height. Okay, so before we go into finding surface area, let's find the slant height. So here I have a radius of 2, okay, and a height of 2. Your slant height, again, is that hypotenuse along the edge of your cone. Okay, so you do create a right triangle. So again, we can use the Pythagorean theorem to solve for the slant height. So I would have 2 squared plus 2 squared is equal to L squared. Again, that is your slant height there. So we have 4 plus 4 equals L squared, which is 8. Take the square root of both sides, and your slant height would be about 2.83 units, or 2.8. It's fine too. And again, if you notice that both of your legs were congruent, you could have used 45, 45, 90, and just taken 2 times the square root of 2 to get that slant height as well. Questions on that? All right, looking at examples then. Again, we want to find the surface area of this cone. So I'm going to find P, L, and B. So first, solving for P. To find the perimeter of that base, we have to use 2 pi r. And we are given the radius. Okay, the radius is 9. So I'll plug that in for r. So we have 2 pi times 9. Okay, we can multiply those together and round to get 56.55 centimeters. Okay, then we also need the slant height. So again, I have the height of this cone and the radius here, and we need to solve for L. So we can use the Pythagorean theorem by taking 12 squared plus 9 squared is equal to L squared. So we have 144 plus 81 equals L squared. That is 225 equal to L squared. Take the square root, and our slant height will be 15 centimeters. Okay, next I need B, which is the area of the base. And to find the area of the base, we use pi r squared. And again, r is 9, so we can plug in 9 for r. And you should get that base area to be about 254.47 centimeters squared. Okay, so I have P, I have L, and I have B. So now I can find the surface area by plugging it into that formula I highlighted above. So that is 1/2 times P is 56.55 times L is 15 plus 1B, so 254.47. Okay, and you should get that surface area to be about 678.6 centimeters squared. Questions on number 3, finding the surface area of that cone? Alright, then last one here. In this one, I'm given the height of the cone and the slant height, except I'm not given the radius, which I need to find P and B. So I'll use the Pythagorean theorem. So I take 12 squared plus r squared is equal to 13 squared. Since I am given that hypotenuse of that right triangle. So I have 144 plus r squared is equal to 169. Subtract 144 from both sides. Get 25. Then take the square root, and your radius should be 5. Okay, now I can find P, L, and B. So finding P, we use the circumference formula. So that would be 2 pi times our r value was 5. To get 31.42. That is in centimeters. Okay, I was already given the slant height, or L. That was 13 centimeters. And then finding B, that's the area of the base, so I need to use pi r squared. So we have pi times 5 squared. When I multiply that, I should get 78.54 centimeters squared. So now that I have P, L, and B, I can find the surface area by plugging it into that formula. Okay, so our surface area is equal to 1/2 times P, which is 31.42, times L, which is 13, plus B is 78.54. Okay, so our surface area, you should get about 282.77 centimeters squared. If it asks you for lateral area, okay, lateral area is just that 1/2 P times L piece. So you just don't add on that capital B value. Okay, so lateral area is just the first half of that equation. Any questions on surface area of pyramids or cones?